Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2021 found footage anthology sequel VHS 94, a film that is directed by several different directors and has got lots of different people starring in it. And if I was here to go through all the directors and actors, then it would take up most of the runtime of this video. Now then, the VHS franchise. Where am I with this franchise? Well, I'm a big fan of the VHS franchise for the most part. I like horror anthology films and I like found footage films. So the VHS franchise seems tailor-made for me. Now, the first VHS was really good. The second VHS I thought was outstanding. And VHS Viral, I'll be honest, I haven't seen that one. I've kind of avoided that one because it kind of got slated when it was first released. But when I found out not that long ago that VHS 94 was going to be streaming exclusively on Shudder, I got a little bit excited to find out that this franchise was going to be making a little bit of a comeback. Now, Shudder, I think generally speaking, do some pretty decent stuff. I've enjoyed some of the things they've done on Shudder, some of the originals that they've done, so I was quite looking forward to this. And what do we get with this franchise? With this film then? Well, what we get is 4 stories and like a wraparound story, and typically the wraparound story is, as you would imagine for this VHS franchise, there's like this SWAT team. I mean, it's got its own title. I think it's called Holy Hell. The wraparound story, it's like this SWAT team break into this warehouse and discover all these videotapes and things that they just, and that's essentially the vehicle for the videos that we're going to watch. Very similar to the other films, really. For me, the weakest part of this film, is the wraparound story. It wasn't overly creepy, not like the other films from what I remember. And to say they were like a SWAT team, they weren't really dressed like SWAT team members. They didn't really act like SWAT team members. They basically acted like actors in camouflage gear wandering around a warehouse. It felt a bit cheap to me, the wraparound story. It didn't really work, certainly not for me, but it worked in the sense of it was the vehicle to tell these stories. So the first story that we get is a story called Storm Drain. And it focuses on a community where apparently there are some sightings of this rat man down in the sewers. So like a journalist and a cameraman goes down there to try and cover the story, and they kind of don't appreciate what they uncover. Pretty good story. I really quite enjoyed this one. Pretty freaky, pretty scary at times, some good effects, some pretty gore effects, and it had a really good ending to that story, so I thought it was a good start to the film. The second story was called The Empty Wake. Essentially, it's a woman who works at a funeral parlour, and she has to kind of host a wake during the night for this guy who has died. And it's during a storm, basically, and as you can imagine, it's a funeral parlour, not many people turning up to a wake, there's a storm, the creepy things start happening. Again, pretty effective story, really freaky end to it, some good effects I thought as well in this one, so yeah, I didn't mind this story either. The third story, the subject, is arguably the maddest one of the lot, and possibly my favourite as well. And it's about this guy who essentially is experimenting on people. It's like a crossover, this, of like Robocop, Terminator and Frankenstein. He's like experimenting on humans and trying to combine them with machines with really freaky outcomes. And he gets raided kind of by the police. Now this is, I don't know if it's Chinese or Japanese with English subtitles, but I thought it was a really effective story with some really cool effects. I quite enjoyed it, if I'm honest. And the last story was called Terror, which has almost had like a dark comedic tone to this final story. It's about this cult trying to think how to word this one without spoiling the story. It's about a cult that is going to doing like an attack in the city, but they're pretty inept and they believe there are monsters and they're going to prove it, and that's all I really want to say on that story. Um, Probably the weakest of the lot, this one, only because I'm not sure the humour worked. The concept was pretty good, some pretty decent effects, and the ending was fairly effective, but like I say, the dark tone of the story, or the dark comedic tone, it was like black comedy almost, weren't sure about it. But overall, I thought this was actually a fairly strong anthology. Apart from the wraparound story, I didn't feel worked particularly, and the final story I thought tonally was a little bit off. But I thought the other three stories were pretty effective and of a decent quality. So from my perspective, I had a pretty good time watching this. I'm a big fan of horror anthologies, and I like found footage, and they all tick that box for me. So if you're a fan of the VHS franchise, this might be a little bit of a return to form after VHS Viral. But like I say, I've not seen VHS Viral, so I couldn't really comment on that one. But I had a decent time watching this one. I thought some of the stories were fairly effective. So I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. Unbelievably, I've seen some people giving this like 1 out of 10 on IMDb, which is just ridiculous. It is far, far better than that. Could have probably been a little bit better, but I still had a lot of fun watching it. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you found this review useful, and of course I will be back with plenty more content on the channel very, very soon.